right, now, Chris, it's great to be with you. Let's begin, though, with the story of the week, which has turned out to be, obviously, Bo Bergdahl's swap for terrorists out of Gitmo. Sure. 5 high-valued terrorists out of Gitmo. Now, the reasoning behind it was, hey, we had to move quickly. We could not mention this to Congress. We could not contact Congress because we had to move. It was too quick. Because under law, well, they have to notify Congress 30 days.
Sure.
Give them 30 days notice. That said, Susan Rice points to the health of Sergeant Bergdahl as the reason they didn't follow the law. This is George Stephanopoulos asking, hey, why didn't you? And here is the National Security Advisor for the President of the United States and liar when it comes to Benghazi. Crane Durham said that, but that's the reality. Roll it.
Well, George, in fact, what we had to do and what we did do, consistent with the President's constitutional authority as Commander-in-Chief, is prioritize the health of Sergeant Bergdahl. We had reason to be concerned that this was an urgent and acute situation, that his life could have been at risk. We did not have 30 days to wait, and had we waited and lost him, I don't think anybody would have forgiven the United States government. We have, in the past, had extensive consultations with Congress. They were well aware that this idea and this prospect was one that the administration was seriously considering. But when it came to fruition, the Department of Defense, in consultation with the Department of Justice, determined that it was both appropriate and necessary for us to proceed in an expedited fashion, and that's what the President decided to do, and as a consequence, we have Bo Bergdahl back.
Wolf Blitzer asked this question to Jay Carney, referencing, well, some changes along the way a little later on in the week. Roll it.
He's now in Landstuhl Hospital in Germany. He's going through all of the requisite evaluations and care, and he is said to be walking and in good physical condition.
Good physical condition, yet Secretary of Defense Hagel said the same day Bergdahl's safety and health were in jeopardy. That's why the U.S. had to act so quickly and didn't provide notification to Congress. So is he doing fine or not so fine?
Well, I think you're making a connection there that doesn't exist. The point that the Secretary of Defense made on behalf of the President is that it was absolutely the right thing to do to seize the opportunity to recover Sergeant Bergdahl, because not doing so could potentially jeopardize his life. And that is obviously also the reason why it was important to act quickly and not to activate the 30-day window of notification to Congress, because, again, allowing for that notification, allowing for those 30 days could, in effect, jeopardize a member of our military's life. So,
okay, Chris, we're all together here. It's the health. It's the health of Bo Bergdahl. That's the excuse. Here is the President. Roll it.
We had a prisoner of war whose health had deteriorated, and we were deeply concerned about it, and we saw an opportunity, and we seized it, and I make no apologies for that.
Now, that was later, of course, this week, just yesterday, I believe, and the President made this statement, but he didn't mention the fact that the Congress they were basing their report and their concern on a video that was 6 months old. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious, is the President lying?
Well, I would say he's using the same exact talking points, and I'll bring it up. I bring that up for this specific reason. Rice had mentioned the fact that the health was an issue, and then Carney kind of deflects Wolf Blitzer's question there, and they start talking about how it's this patriotic thing. They're glad they got a guy home. His health was deteriorating, according to the President, according to Rice, who also said he was captured on the battlefield. That's been disputed. Most people stopped listening to what Susan Rice had to say in 2012, and I think they're using very carefully worded terminology that it certainly is disputable or debatable at this point.
Well, again, and understand that we've gotten this before. You referenced Susan Rice.
Mm-hmm.
Colonel Ralph Peters called it Benghazi 2.0. Are you, as communications go, and as a journalist, are you seeing that same paradigm, that model?
Yeah, a lot of people have made that same connection. Breitbart certainly has kind of referred to it, maybe not in those exact terms, but people certainly have made that connection. What is interesting here is that these three individuals here all seem to be talking about the health of one individual who may have left his post, according to a number of soldiers, not just one person. But they were apparently not that concerned with reports that a lot of veterans were being denied medical care because it took them so long to demand a resignation that even some Republican lawmakers like John Boehner have said wouldn't solve the situation at the VA.
So drawing some context in light of the reasoning behind something and the consequence of inaction. And
yeah,
that
it's
being
definitely a
obviously
scandal. Even if it's not Benghazi 2.0, it is definitely a scandal. I mean, the top story right now on CNN.com. Okay, CNN.com. The headline is "That Turned Nasty Fast," and it has a picture of Bergdahl, and it says Bergdahl release not welcomed with open arms. It quotes John McCain as saying, "I would have rejected the deal." It's got a story on the 6 GIs who died, and it's got various people explaining why Obama made the deal.
And as we did, we let Bill know NBC covered it the other night, and referencing one of the widows of the fallen.
Sure.
So definitely more to come on that, and I know you all are all over it. We move now to Cheryl Atkinson discussing her industry and her new book. Asked about her new book and the state of media today. Here is the former CBS News reporter. Roll it.
I think one thing that's lacking, especially the last couple of years, is the desire on the parts of editors and managers to let stories be what they are and tell themselves versus directing them to go in a certain direction. I mean, I feel like more often than not in the last couple of years, many managers want to know where a story is going to end up before they decide to commit to it. That's really not how the journalism that I think should be done is committed. I think that you may find an interesting story and then you go discover the facts about it. You don't try to lead it in one direction or another. I also think there's a tendency in the news media to, on the part of some managers, to censor or block stories that don't fall in line with the message that they want sent to the viewers. And I think that's really a very dangerous perspective to have. I don't think we should be in the business of concluding in advance what the viewers might think of a certain story, and therefore it needs to go in a different direction or perhaps not air at all.
As anchor/reporter for American Family News, as a journalist, do you see what she's talking about? And if so, how troubled are you by the statement?
I'm not surprised. People I know that have worked in the business and are working in the business, as well as some places I have worked, you see some signs of that. Definitely there are individuals who might be over you, not necessarily over the entire news product, but they look at things and they maybe make some edits and make some changes for the reporters, and maybe even how it's done in the newscast. For instance, I was a producer and worked in that capacity. But it definitely exists. I know a lot of people out there are saying that she's kind of, she's upset with her former employer because they said this or didn't let her do that or whatever else. But a number of people who work in this profession would tell you that she is pretty much spot on with what she's saying there. And I can't say, most people, but I would say a lot of folks who work in broadcasting, radio, television, or maybe even print, we'll include that with broadcasting, would have an experience that she's sharing here.
We move now to the story of Nancy Pelosi. Please don't turn the channel.
Nancy,
she's back.
Yes,
she's back.
Yeah, it is a scandal still, by the way.
It is a scandal. Yes, it is. Amen to that. Here, Nancy Pelosi speaking on climate change man-made climate change, and, well, I think it speaks for itself. Roll it.
time for us to wake up, Congress. It's about the time that we have lost because of opportunities that have been missed in the past several years, because there have been those in the Congress of the United States who did not respect science. What we're talking about here is evidence-based. They reject the science. They say that you have to have faith or you have science. You have to take your choice. You can't have both. We say science is an answer to our prayers.
Okay.
Sounds
Chris,
like government-sponsored religion.
well said. Your thoughts? I mean, obviously, there's some false characterizations there, and in essence, putting up the straw man to say you choose one or the other. As the person who was business and environment reporter,
Sure.
your thoughts? Is that just consistent talking points from those pushing more regulation?
It sure is. It sure is. And she's certainly been a fan of those regulations. You know, if she was really concerned about emissions, which is something that people she identifies with blame for man-made climate change or global warming, what have you, if she was that concerned about it and that serious about it, she wouldn't be jet setting. She wouldn't be flying back and forth to her home district. She would be walking. She
So
wouldn't be
looking
driving
for a
around
little.
she wouldn't be driving around or riding around, rather, in government SUVs that probably get, single-digit miles per gallon.
We'll know them by their fruits. Okay, so application there, non-traditional. Here's a report from the mainstream media. Roll it.
Wildfires burning more often with less water on hand to put them out. And on the heels of America's warmest decade, more heat waves and periods of severe drought.
Here in America, more wildfires, intense burns like this one in Colorado.
It means more heat waves and exceptional drought, bringing those wildfires. All of it, according to the National Climate Assessment Report, is from the impact of a warming planet.
All of which is leading many to wonder whether the Dust Bowl is really so far away and so long ago, after all.
I'm relaxed yet terrified.
Yeah.
We've got less than a minute left. Give us the rundown.
Yeah, that is it's what we talked about in the past, where you want to bring about emotion, so you show a bunch of stuff that scares you. Certainly there have been a number of wildfires over the years, long before SUVs and oil production and stuff really started cranking up, and 5 people in a home in America started having cars. It's hot in places, it's cold in places. It's going to snow when conditions are favorable, and wildfires will start when it's dry and hot outside. Context,
Historical and otherwise. The great Chris Woodward. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Great to be with you. Coming up, Dr. Alex McFarland and Pastor Aaron Free, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.